What's up, bro?
Dude, just living the dream, living the dream. This wonderful day, but
Living the
happy
dream.
to be on. Yeah,
Love
happy to
it,
be
bro.
on with you today.
Thanks for coming on. Just wanted to give a little insight. This is for a lot of people who are, looking to get into sales or they're already in sales. Maybe they're not doing as well as they thought or seeing the results that they wanted. And so I just wanted to share and hear from you on your journey because this isn't going to be about anything about theory. It's about real sales reps, real experiences, real lessons. Today we get to learn from Mr. Dane Vikander, or Dane Train as we call him. Happy to have him on the interview, and I think first thing I'd like to hear from you is just how you got into sales. What kind of led you to this career path? Did you come out of the womb thinking you'd be in sales, or was this what kind of led to it?
Oh, dude, no, it wasn't. It wasn't out of the womb. It's actually kind of funny because I've been doing this for a long time now, and when I first got into sales, my entire life I was introverted, and I'm still an introvert naturally, but I didn't have a ton of belief that I was going to be good at selling, but I knew that I could work hard, and so I actually had one of my buddies come back from a summer. He had gone out to Florida and was selling home security systems. And he went out for 3.5 months, and he drove up to our fraternity house where I was going to school up in Utah. And he pulled up in a new Porsche, and he had a fur coat on, which I thought was ridiculous. And it was. And I don't suggest anyone getting a fur coat, but he had blown all the money that he had just made, which was like somewhere around $90,000 in 3 months as an 18-year-old kid. And I saw that because I'm competitive, and I'm like, if you can do this, then I can do this. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm introverted. Like, I can outwork you, and I'm gonna go out and do the same thing. And so I invited me to come out that next summer, and we actually got sent out to Houston, Texas, and I was selling home security, and that's where my sales career kind of kicked off. It wasn't like a natural progression or anything. It was just like I had a bigger reason to go and do it, and I had like a major need to make money at the time. Being like a struggling college kid, like I needed to make some money, and I was paying my way for college and housing, and I wanted to make sure that I could take care of that and not come out of college with too much debt. So that's what kind of kicked off my sales career. I really like I jumped into it, and I learned early on that it wasn't a ton about my skill. It was a lot more about my work ethic. And that was something I learned really early on. But it's like, if you can go and outwork people, then you'll have success out there. And then I saw that if I could copy people that were successful, that was going to put me in a better situation to go and get more wins. And so I started reading more. I started learning from the people that were like top reps in the company that we were at the time, Platinum Protection. They had a training video, like a DVD, if anyone remembers DVDs. But I have this training DVD from Platinum, and I would watch this guy, John Frampton, just do this whole presentation from door knock to close. And I just copied his verbiage. I copied his mindset, his mentality. And I'm like, if I can just like duplicate that more, like I'm in a movie or something, like this will work for me. And it did. I found success pretty early on. I was working a lot of hours, and I was copying what other successful people are doing. And then I started really excelling later on that summer as I read more and my skills started to increase. But it wasn't like a fast start out of the gate for sure.
That's awesome. And so this was kind of like you started as just a way to make it through college, right? You were studying in college to, get a degree and possibly get a job afterwards, what we call a real job. And was this something that you felt like you were going to do forever, or you were just making this, summer money to kind of support your job, and then you were going to go into, the field that you wanted to?
Yeah, it's one of those things like when you're in college, you feel like you're going through the process because either you're told to go to school or you want to go to school and get a degree. Um, and then at the end of that, you're going to have some like amazing career set out for you that is just waiting for you. And I think I was a sophomore when I got involved in sales. Like I saw really early on that like school is fine. Like I can study and take my tests. And I was studying economics at the time. I always wanted to be in the finance world, um, and something with entrepreneurship, but I didn't know what. And so when I got into sales, it was more like I'll do this because it helps pay for my needs, which is housing and books and my tuition. And then I saw that it was paying for my needs, and I'm like, well, what do I want? And so I'm like, well, I would like to have a nice car. And that was like a next goal that I put out for myself. And I remember my second summer, I went out and bought at that time a really nice car for myself, a Ford Mustang, which I always wanted, and I just had to have it. So I had that. I paid for my tuition, my schooling, had a nice place to live during college, and didn't have to worry about working while I was in school, so I could focus on my academics, which I was able to do really well in those. And then as I continued to do that, I was able to get more of my wants and started setting up some investments and working towards a goal to buy my first house. And it just became more and more real. But it wasn't something where I was like, this is going to be a career. I still thought at the end of getting out of college that I would have this amazing job opportunity. And what's funny is when you graduate, a lot of my buddies went back to doing exactly what they were doing before, which was working in the service industry at bars or restaurants. Some of them got into low level type of like economics situations where they're working at Fidelity. A few of my buddies went to Goldman Sachs, and part of me was like, I should go that route, but I was already financially making, quite a bit of money in door to door. And I saw that I was in control of my outcome, and I didn't have to work up this career ladder, which is a pretty daunting thing. And I've seen a lot of my buddies leave those industries now and leave those career paths because it's like a very slow progression. And in a world that's rapidly changing the way that it is today, it's like we don't really have time for that. Like we want to get ahead now and enjoy things now, and at the same time put ourselves in a better situation. And I found with sales that each sales year was equivalent to 3 to 5 years in another industry, financially and growth wise. And so it was like, I mean, it's all about growing and developing, and that's what gets you excited. And that's why I really like started to fall in love with even after college, and making this decision to make it a career and like a life path for me. So yeah, it definitely wasn't like a natural, immediate progression for me to jump into sales and think that that was going to be it. But
Yeah, I think that's so true. A lot of us we go the traditional path and we think that that's our only option. And the fact that you had the opportunity to experience, the little bit of freedom and financially and also time wise, but be able to control your outcome versus relying on, the corporate ladder and how long do you need to be there. You're able to actually make that decision before, getting out and starting that life and career in the economic side of things. But you talked a little bit about how when you first started, you started to kind of take notice patterns in some of the top producers. I feel like when somebody starts in sales, everyone always has like that breakthrough moment. It's kind of like when the stars align, they feel like this is exactly where they should be. Sometimes it's really early on, or even in the very beginning. Sometimes it takes a while for people. When did that moment kind of happen for you, where you believe like this is where you should be, this is where you could win in this industry?
yeah, I think it's really important when you're getting into a career, especially in sales, that you have a great need or a want that you want to fulfill. When I went out my very first summer and I was in Houston, Texas, like I remember I had my dad had given me I think $60 and cash, and that was literally all the money that I had. And so because of that, I knew that it was like I either figure this out or I'm in trouble. And when your back's against the wall, you're set to be in that position. Like, we're all here for a reason. And so when your back's against the wall, you usually find a way to perform. And I think that's a really powerful place to be. And so it was like, I can put my head down and learn as much as I can from people that are successful. So I'm going to adopt their mindset. I'm going to adopt the hours that they work. So if they're getting out there before the meetings, because we met every single day in the summertime, we'd meet at 11, then we'd meet for an hour, and then we'd go to lunch. Like, I would get out before the meeting and go and knock doors. And most of the time I wasn't selling before the meeting. Occasionally I'd get a deal, but it was just to get the rhythm of knocking the doors and handling the objections. And then we would wrap up our meeting after, we'd go to lunch, and then we'd get out in the field. And I saw the top producers are the ones that wanted to be out of the car group first. And so I always made sure that I was the one out first, and I wanted to get the first sale. Like, it was a sprint to get the first sale. And I knew, because if I could go out and get these sales, like, it was going to put me in a better situation. I wasn't going to have just $60 to my name anymore. And so there's got to be that immediate need. You see how these successful people are reading a lot. And I found very early on that if I can read a lot and increase my skill, and while I'm reading, apply it, I think that's one of the most important things, because just knowledge is not power. It's actually the knowledge, and then applying that knowledge is power. Because if you know it all, it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful in sales with anything in life. I mean, you could know everything about throwing a baseball, but if you don't actually do it and apply what you know, it doesn't correlate to anything. And so I just knew that the people that were successful are the ones that were going out reading it and then doing it, and it became a lifestyle. It's not just like a job. And it was like we were out there for the summer. It was 9 a.m. until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I think it's a really good situation to be in for people when you don't have a lot to your name, is just going out and working the hours, and you don't have distractions, and you just go out and perform that way. And I think it's like, you got to find that place where you can put yourself into that situation where you burned all your ships. Your back's against the wall. You have a major reason, like a need and a want, and that will change over time. But initially you have to have that, like, whatever it is, you need to find that and dig into it, because that's what's going to get you through the hard times as well. Because it's not going to be like this upward climb. Like, you're going to have really tough days that break you down. But, yeah, when it comes to like patterns, everyone is going to have ebbs and flows in this business. You just have to realize that when you're having those times where you're having a tough experience, or a tough day, or a tough week, you've got to have a little bit of faith, knowing that you're going to get out of it. So it's not doing less activity, it's increasing activity. And then you should increase your conviction, because you're out there doing it more. And then just remind yourself that you're good at what you do, and sales are easy. Like, sales are easy every time you're out there. People want to talk to you. They need what we have. And instilling that belief over and over in yourself is a way that you can get through those ebbs a little bit quicker. It's really like it's a mental game. It's not physical. It's like baseball. It's like 90% mental, 10% physical. So I'm a big believer in that with sales. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, you kind of.
No, that's great. I think that's a really good point to touch on. The mental side is really where a lot of people fail. A lot of people will give up because they don't have the strength mentally to handle. I mean, you talked about the ebbs, ebbs and flows, but really, I think it can be those down moments that make the biggest difference. Did you ever have a moment where you said, I'm done, I'm going to quit this. This isn't for me. Did you ever have a moment like that?
Yeah, I mean, you have that throughout anything you're doing. You have those times where you kind of break down, and especially when I was in college, and I felt like my sales career was not a career yet. It was just like something that I would do during the summer to make ends meet and pay for what I needed to, and then have fun on the side. At the end of those summers, I would always think like, well, I can't wait to get back to school, and then I'll get this degree, and then I'm going to have this career. And it was kind of a breaking point when I graduated college and I had my economics degree, and I saw really quickly that you could apply to places, and I did just to see where I stood in the job market, and I got into all the positions I applied for, but they're all entry level positions at Merrill Lynch and Fidelity, and a couple other financial companies, and I was like, well, what does this equate to financially? It wasn't anywhere close to what I was making in sales, and it's not just about financial, but I'm like, how are we going to grow and develop? And it's like you've got to find a leader that you can kind of attach yourself to as well. And I saw in sales, there's a lot of performers, and in business, if you're going in and you want to grow and develop, you've got to be around other performers that are going to help level you up, because there's more to life than money. I think it's important that you're making a lot, but I saw that in the business that I was at, there was some really great mentors that I was surrounded by that really believed in me and believed in everything that we're doing. And I was able to instill that in other people. And so I saw that we can grow and develop a lot more outside of kind of that traditional career path. And I thought that was really powerful. And that's when I kind of made the decision. I'm like, this is my career. Like, this is what I'm doing. And that was back in 2011. Um, and what's funny about that is I had a really tough year after that. I don't know what it was. It's like God or the universe like pushing down on me, like pushing back a little bit. But I tore my Achilles my very last week of school. And so I was about to get sent out for the summer. I had a sales team out there in North Carolina, and I was the car group driver, like the leader of that team. And I remember having a drive with my left foot, which is extremely dangerous. And then I'm knocking on crutches, and it's 100 degrees and humidity, and just, I mean, it was like people are not forgiving when you're like in that situation. Like I thought they would be. Like, you're still just a person. And so I had a tough year, but that's what makes us who we are. I mean, it builds characters. We had a decent summer overall. It wasn't my best year financially, but we did fine. But I grew a lot during that, and it definitely like teaches you grit, and we've got to go through that stuff to see who we are on the other side of where we were. And so that was a big growth year for me. The year after that, we absolutely exploded in growth, and we had a lot more recruits, and I was selling a lot more, and I wouldn't have been in that situation if I didn't have a tough year. But it's funny how things will happen like that in life.
We're meant to we're meant to do hard things, right? Like, we're the obstacles and the adversities, we feel like we want to avoid them, but really that's what helps us get to the next level. That's what helps us grow. And I think for a lot of people who are either in a 9 to 5, or they're feeling stuck, or they're feeling like they're not where they want to be, and they see sales as this opportunity of freedom, right? Freedom, one is financially. There's not like a set paycheck that they get. They go out and they earn whatever it is at the value that they bring, but also it's the freedom of time, you know, to be a 1099 employee, to have the freedom to do what you want, to have more time with your family, do things that you enjoy. But also that could be a little bit of a blessing and a curse, right? When you see new reps that come in and they're hungry, but they get a little bit too much freedom, how do you feel like that affects people? For the most part, do they not really know how to manage that, or are they just are we naturally wired to take the easy road whenever that adversity comes?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't call anyone lazy. I think everyone wants to be busy in their own way, and when it comes to the freedom, it can be dangerous, but it's dangerous when you don't have something that you're wanting to achieve and want something that you're going after. It's kind of when I started, I had a great need. I needed money to survive, like to pay for my food. So if you're in that situation, like go all in, and you'll find a way to be successful, because that's who you are. And we're all great individuals. You're a great individual, and I think you can make magic happen when you're in that situation. Then when you start to have some success and your needs are taken care of, you've got to find a new benchmark of something that you really want, and it needs to be bigger than yourself. You might want some certain things, like getting a car, a nicer place to live. Like, I think that's important. But beyond that, I always was thinking of my future family, and that held me accountable where I never got really sidetracked. And if I did, it wasn't for very long because I always envisioned my future family, my future kids watching me, and would they be proud of what their dad's doing at that time? And it was a higher level of accountability. I knew that I wanted to make them proud, even if they didn't exist yet. And now I'm lucky enough to have three kids, and I can be an example for them. But you've got to have a higher level of accountability. If it's just you and you're not accountable to anyone, it can be a dangerous place to be in. So then you need to surround yourself with people that are pushing and driving and have success. The people that are most successful that I've been around are always hungry. They're really hungry, like they want something else. They want more. They know that there's something else out there for them in growth and development and financial gains, and they can make a bigger impact. And then they are also at the same time stay humble. Where people have gotten in a bad situation in sales that I've seen is when they will go and they'll have success, and they have these blessings that come in financially, and they increase their skill, and then all of a sudden their pride and their ego gets involved, like they feel like it was all something that they did themselves and that nobody else helped them, and that's what ego does. And and then if something happens in a negative way, they can start pushing blame onto other people around them. Generally, they blame the leadership or the managers of the company, and then all of a sudden, these people go down this cycle, and they it's kind of the blame game, and then they're out of the business and they've moved on to a different company, or they're out of the industry altogether. And I've seen that so many times, and it's so hard to watch because they're really talented people. But once again, many times these people are not accountable from someone else or a higher power. Like they feel like it's all on them and that they're doing it all, when the reality is anyone who's successful is doing it with other people. And they're successful because their leadership has helped them, that they've learned from their peers, that their company is supporting them, and that it's not on them. It's God and the universe is all wants this for you. And you need to take those blessings and then make that something great where you can start helping more people, and you'll get in this cycle of, I would say it's like a leadership cycle, where you are accountable to other people and you're responsible for other people. And as that responsibility it goes up, you're going to lose some of the rights to kind of get sidetracked with things that happen and the ebbs and the flows. So um,
Yeah, that's so good. Really good. I mean, when it comes to being in sales, there's so many positives, right? There's also things that can bring us down and deter us and distract us. They call that the adversary, whatever you want to call it. But the main thing is that you can stay focused and you're surrounded by the right people. The team is everything. There's people that are the best salespeople in the world, but if they don't have a team with them, they don't last very long. Because as humans, we're wired to do things together. We're wired to create and to serve and to give and to help. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things, like what you're saying is if you're coming into this because you want the money and you want to be, the fame and the fortune, whatever, it doesn't last very long. You might see some quick success. Most people don't, but eventually it's going to catch up to you because you're not in the right environment or around the right people to guide you to stay in that leadership cycle. So that
yeah,
was that was really good. Let's jump into a quick little skills part. What would you say the most underrated skill is in sales?
I think the most underrated skill would be your authenticity. Um, you can't just copy someone and think that that's going to do it. You need to copy someone who's successful and make it your own. And that's being authentic. Um, it's it's not so much what we're saying, it's how we're saying it and how the people that we're talking to feel. And that's something that's really important in sales. Like you have to genuinely care about people. And so I would say one of those skills, like to be authentic, is you've got to be a good listener and be able to listen to what they're saying and what their needs are and what their body expressions are, And the only way that you can understand that stuff better, especially if you're an introvert and you're not a great communicator, like I wasn't 18 years ago when I started this, is you've got to be able to read and get as much knowledge as you can, so you can kind of start to understand that, and then you got to do the work, and you got to meet more people. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But being authentic is definitely underutilized, and it's why people don't do well in sales, is they're not being themselves enough. You've got to stay to the script or stay to the structure, but make it your own.
Yeah, find a way to add in those things that you learn. But if you're not being who you are, people can read that, they feel the energy right away when you're talking to them. Just like any conversation you have, if someone's really paying attention or if they really care, just from the energy that you're feeling or from the looks that they're giving you, which usually comes out subconsciously. So that's
Yeah.
that's a really good one. All right, so last question. All right, this I want to set up the scenario. If everything you knew about sales was wiped from your memory, right? You had to start all over again with absolutely no knowledge, but you got to pick one thing that from your 18, 17 years of being in sales that you could remember to bring it back when you started all over again. What would that one thing be?
Man, that's an interesting question. Erasing my memory from 17 years, and I just think back. I think, um, I look at it, and I would say the one thing that I would want to remember, the one thing that I would want to bring with me, is you've got to be hungry. You've got to be hungry, knowing that there's more for you, that you deserve more, um, that your dreams matter, and you can go and accomplish whatever it is that you set out to do. And I think that that's like it holds so much power, because it won't matter so much if you don't have a skill, or you don't understand how to sell well, or other people are better than you, because you have this hunger that's going to get you to where you want to be in the future, and it's not an overnight thing. um, if it's easy, it's not worth it. And so you got to know that it's going to be hard, but it is going to be worth it in the end. And you've got to stay hungry, and you've got to have a reason why you're doing what you're doing, and people that you're doing it for. And so I think just make sure that you stay hungry, make sure that you have a reason for doing what we do.
That's awesome. Well, dude, I appreciate you so much for helping on and sharing some of your wisdom from your years, your experience, the lessons, all that stuff. I really hope that what we talked about today helps inspire somebody, maybe even one person, to take that leap into sales, or if someone who's already in sales but is struggling to learn something, to find that hunger, to get themselves to push through those adversities so they can find the success that they seek. But truly what they're after is, what they're capable of. They're capable of anything.
100%, dude. Thank you for having me on here today. I feel really blessed to be able to do this with you, and I love the journey that you're on. And let's go help some more people.
Yeah. Love it, bro. Appreciate you. And yeah, I'll see you later.
Okay, later, bro.